MSW Media.
News with swearing. Daily beans, daily beans. Daily beans, daily beans.
Hello, and welcome to the Daily Beans for Thursday, November 23rd, 2023. Today, the plaintiffs' appeal application in Colorado in the case to keep Trump off the ballot under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment has been accepted by the Colorado Supreme Court. The Georgia Supreme Court strikes a legal blow to the Republican law that would oust prosecutors they don't like. The FBI is investigating an explosion on the U.S. side of the Rainbow Bridge at Niagara Falls. A ceasefire has been brokered by the Biden administration in the Hamas-Israel war. A judge finds evidence that Tesla and Musk knew that their autopilot was defective but allowed people to drive their cars anyhow. Another accusation of sexual assault against Tim Ballard emerges, and Project 2025 accidentally reveals some of their dark money donors. I'm Allison Gill.
And I'm Dana Goldberg.
Happy Turkey Day, my friend.
And to you, I know we're going to put out another episode tomorrow, so people will hear some good things tomorrow as well. But of course, as you hear this on Thanksgiving, however you celebrate, I hope that you can find things that you are thankful for now more than ever. We just need the gratitude and appreciation. That's what the holiday has always been about for me. Family, good food, friends, and just gratitude.
And love. Sending you all the love, Leguminati. If you have beans for your Thanksgiving meal or your holiday meal, you can think of us. Also, don't forget to take your MAGA relatives' phones and subscribe them to the Daily Beans. They love that, I'm told. Back with me today, later in the show, is Mario Nicholas. He's counsel for the plaintiffs of the Colorado suit to keep Trump off the ballot, pursuant to Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. His appeal application has been approved by the Colorado Supreme Court, and they've got a pretty expedited briefing schedule. We're going to talk about that and the next steps and what's in that briefing that he filed, the appeal from the plaintiffs. And tomorrow, I'll be joined by John Fugelsang, so you don't want to miss that. A couple of quick hits. A car exploded on Rainbow Bridge. That's the bridge at Niagara Falls, and it exploded on the U.S. side of Niagara Falls. We're still waiting to get more information as the FBI is investigating that. And Project 2025, that ultra-fascist plan that the GOP has to install autocracy in a second Trump term, accidentally revealed some of its donors, and it's surprising. 2 liberal organizations, including the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation and the Omidyar Foundation. Omidyar contributed about $500,000 to American Compass. That's an org that contributes to Project 2025. And the Hewlett Foundation, which, if that rings a bell, they're on NPR all the time, they give over $2 million. That's more than they gave to NPR or Planned Parenthood during the same time frame. It's very confused about that. And thanks to, I believe it was Sullenberger at the Daily Beast for breaking that story. All right, we have a lot of news to get to on this holiday, so let's hit the hot notes. Hot notes. First up, from the Associated Press, a temporary ceasefire agreement to facilitate the release of dozens of people taken hostage during Hamas's raid on Israel is expected to bring the first respite to war-weary Palestinians in Gaza and a glimmer of hope to the families of the captives. Israel and Hamas agreed to the 4-day halt, which was announced Wednesday, and will also see the release of Palestinian prisoners held by Israel. The deal, brokered by Qatar, the United States, and Egypt, was made public as fighting intensified in central neighborhoods of Gaza City. Egypt's state-run Kahira TV channel said the truce would take effect Thursday morning, local time. It caps a week of fitful, indirect negotiations and sets the stage for a tense period that could determine the course of the war, which was set off by Hamas's October 7th raid and has killed more than 11,000 Palestinians, according to Palestinian health authorities. Hamas and other militant groups abducted some 240 and killed at least 1,200 people. Qatar announced Wednesday that Hamas will release 50 hostages in exchange for what Hamas said would be 150 Palestinian prisoners held by Israel. Those released by both sides will be women and minors. The hostages would be released in bursts throughout the ceasefire. Once the first batch is released, Israel is expected to free the first group of Palestinian prisoners. Those up for release include a lot of teenage boys detained during a wave of violence in the West Bank in 2022 or 2023 and charged with offenses such as stone throwing or disturbing public order, and that's according to a list of eligible prisoners published by Israel's Justice Ministry. Israel currently holds nearly 7,000 Palestinians accused or convicted of security offenses. Israel said the truce would be extended by a day for every 10 additional hostages released. Qatar said Israel would allow more fuel and humanitarian aid into Gaza, and we have a little more details on that. Over 300 trucks carrying aid per day will be going in. Hamas said hundreds of trucks carrying humanitarian aid and fuel are to be allowed to enter Gaza every day as part of the deal. Supplies would also reach northern Gaza, the focus of Israel's ground offensive, for the first time, according to Hamas. Israel's government statement did not refer to increased aid and fuel deliveries. Israeli Channel 12 TV reported that as part of the deal, Israel would allow a significant amount of fuel and humanitarian supplies into Gaza, but didn't specify how much. Israel has severely limited the amount of aid, especially fuel, allowed into Gaza during the war, prompting dire shortages of water and food and fuel to run generators. Israel is saying that Hamas intercepts these fuel deliveries and takes them for themselves. The fighting is expected to come to a temporary halt. Israeli jets and troops will hold their fire, while militants are expected to refrain from firing rockets at Israel. Hamas said Israel's warplanes would stop flying over southern Gaza during the 4-day truce and for 6 hours daily over the north. Israel made no mention of halting flights, and it wasn't clear if this would include its sophisticated intelligence drones, which have been a constant presence over Gaza.
Thank you so much, AG. This one's from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. The Georgia Supreme Court said Wednesday that it won't approve rules and regulations for a new state commission empowered to sanction prosecutors, effectively rendering moot a law backed by Governor Brian Kemp and other top Republicans until lawmakers overhaul the measure. Well, the 6-page ruling said the state's top court had grave doubts about whether it had the constitutional authority to approve of the rules set forth by the Prosecuting Attorneys Qualifications Commission, a step required by the law. It's a big deal. Now, and I quote, "Because we are under no legal directive to take action, the most prudent course for us is to decline to take action without conclusively deciding any constitutional questions." That's what the order says. Now, that puts the law on hold. While the commission began accepting complaints earlier this year under Senate Bill 92, it can't take any action until the Georgia Supreme Court approves a set of rules and code of conduct. Now, the battle over the commission is being closely watched, partly because Donald Trump's allies aim to use the law, that new law, to punish Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis for seeking election interference charges against the former president. Talk about partisan. Yeah, the order dealt a blow to Kemp and other Republicans who championed the law earlier this year as a way to punish rogue prosecutors over the objections of Democrats who say it flouts the will of voters. And it does. Now, the law, among a spate of Republican-led efforts nationwide to exert more control over liberal prosecutors they accuse of neglecting their duties because they refuse to enforce low-level drug offenses, anti-abortion restrictions, and tough-on-crime crackdowns. So they're trying to target liberal prosecutors. It's very clear. But it's also attracted scrutiny because supporters and critics both say it could be deployed against prosecutors investigating Trump specifically. Now, that's what happened last month when Georgia's Senate GOP leaders filed a formal complaint to the commission seeking to sanction Fani Willis, even though Kemp and House Speaker John Burns said there's no evidence that Fulton prosecutor violated any state law. Well, the court's decision on Wednesday came as little surprise. Earlier this month, the court questioned whether it had the legal authority to approve the rules, prompting a response by the Association of Prosecuting Attorneys that labeled the commission unlawful. At the heart of the legal back and forth is the question of whether the judicial branch has authority over the state's district attorneys, and that's an issue that the justices said they weren't ready to resolve. Quote, "In short, we have grave doubts that we have the constitutional power to take any action on the draft standards and rules." That's from the ruling itself. Went on to say, but deciding the question of whether we actually have the power would require deciding difficult constitutional questions of first impression outside of the adversarial process. Now, the Senate passed a floor amendment during legislative debate that would have removed the Georgia Supreme Court's role in the process, but the change wasn't adopted by the House, and it wasn't in the final version that Kemp even signed. So even so, Georgia lawmakers are expected to amend the legislation next year to remove the Supreme Court's role. But the commission still faces a broader legal challenge from a bipartisan coalition of district attorneys who argue that the measure is definitely unconstitutional.
Yep. So even when it's over, it's not over. It's never over. We will always be fighting for voting rights. All right, next up from Reuters, a Florida judge found reasonable evidence that Tesla chief executive Elon Musk and other managers knew the automaker's vehicles had a defective autopilot system, but still allowed the cars to be driven unsafely. That's according to a ruling. Judge Reed Scott in the Circuit Court for Palm Beach County, where Mar-a-Lago is, ruled last week that the plaintiff in a lawsuit over a fatal crash could proceed to trial and bring punitive damages claims against Tesla for intentional misconduct and gross negligence. The order has not been previously reported. The ruling is a setback for Tesla after the company won 2 product liability trials in California earlier this year over the autopilot driver assistance system. A Tesla spokesperson could not immediately be reached for comment on Tuesday. The Florida lawsuit arose out of a 2019 crash north of Miami in which owner Stephen Banner's Model 3 drove under the trailer of an 18-wheeler big rig truck that had turned on the road, shearing off the Tesla's roof and killing him. A trial set for October was delayed and had not been rescheduled, and still isn't to this day. Brian Walker Smith, a University of South Carolina law professor, called the judge's summary of evidence significant because it suggests alarming inconsistencies between what Tesla knew internally and what it was saying in its marketing. Quote, this opinion opens the door for a public trial in which the judge seems inclined to admit a lot of testimony and other evidence that could be pretty awkward for Tesla and its CEO. And now the result of that trial could be a verdict with punitive damages. Now, the Florida judge found evidence that Tesla, quote, engaged in a marketing strategy that painted the products as autonomous, and that Musk's public statements about the technology, quote, had significant effect on the belief about the capabilities of the products. Scott also found that the plaintiff, Banner's wife, should be able to argue to the jurors that Tesla's warnings in its manuals and click wrap agreement were inadequate. The judge said that the accident is eerily similar to a 2016 fatal crash involving Joshua Brown, in which the autopilot system failed to detect crossing trucks, leading vehicles to go underneath tractor trailers at high speeds. Quote, it would be reasonable to conclude that the defendant, Tesla, through its CEO and engineers, was acutely aware of the problem with the autopilot failing to detect cross traffic. That's from the judge. Banner's attorney, Lake Lighthall, said they are, quote, extremely proud of this result, that it's based in evidence of punitive conduct. The judge also cited a 2016 video showing Tesla vehicle, a specific one, driving without human intervention as a way to market the autopilot. The beginning of the video shows a disclaimer, which says the person in the driver's seat is only there for legal reasons. Quote, the car is driving itself, it said. That video shows scenarios not dissimilar than what Banner encountered, according to the judge. Absent from this video is any indication that the video is aspirational or that the technology doesn't exist in the market. And that's what the judge wrote. So this is going to trial.
All right, we'll see what happens. This last one's from Rolling Stone. Now, since the conservative audiences flocked to Sound of Freedom this summer, turning a biopic about Tim Ballard's supposed exploits as an anti-trafficking operator into an unlikely hit, Ballard has had his heroic mythology rapidly stripped away in a series of lawsuits, formal rebukes, and dissolved relationships. Now, but in recent days, his legal problems have gotten even worse. And now, Operation Underground Railroad, OUR, which is the advocacy group he founded in 2013, that's also in the crosshairs as well. Well, and a little trigger warning for sexual assault in the story. Ballard was apparently forced out of Utah-based OUR before the premiere of Sound of Freedom, based on information emerged after the film's release and his press tour in September. Reports confirmed, by the way, that he left due to internal investigation related to sexual misconduct claims. Now, the following month, 5 women filed lawsuit alleging he had sexually assaulted and emotionally abused them while they took part in OUR's operations, which typically involved traveling abroad and posing as sexual predators in sting operations meant to catch pedophiles. Now, a second lawsuit from an unnamed married couple claimed that such behavior between Ballard and the wife of an undercover operations had caused the pair to separate. Now, Ballard has denied these claims in statements made through another anti-trafficking organization called Spear Fund that until recently listed him as a senior advisor, but no longer features him as a team member at all on the website. Now, OUR has made efforts to move on after cutting ties with Ballard, but a new lawsuit from an ex-operative targets both the group and its embattled founder. Also named in the filing is OUR's former director of security. That's Matt Cooper. That's Ballard's first employee there, by the way, who is likewise no longer with the organization. Well, the suit, brought by social worker Bree Ryder, a Marine veteran who reached the rank of corporal, pertains to the men's alleged sexual misconduct on an undercover mission and a severe eye injury she sustained during a training exercise in 2021 at an OUR gym. That's according to Vice News, which reviewed the entire complaint. And this is a quote. Ballard was present and refused to call an ambulance because he wanted no record of the event occurring at OUR's training. This is what the suit said, by the way, with Ryder going on to require extensive surgery, the plaintiff, extensive surgery on an eye socket implant to replace a shattered orbital bone, that she had suffered long-term vision problems as a result. Again, that's all in the filing. Now, in the suit, Ryder also claims that she traveled to the British Virgin Islands with Ballard and Cooper, where she was assigned to act as Cooper's romantic partner in an undercover strategy Ballard had called the couple's ruse. Other women suing the ousted OUR leader alleged that he would use this as a pretext to coerce them into having sex, purportedly to convince potential traffickers that their false identities were authentic. He's so gross. In this case, Ryder alleges Ballard used the arrangement to pressure her to have sex with Cooper. Furthermore, she claims Ballard and his own couple's ruse partner treated the mission like a debauched vacation, just visiting bars, strip clubs, massage parlors, and now attempts to reach Cooper were unsuccessful, not surprising. And a quote from the story, it became very evident to the plaintiff that OUR only focused on allowing its celebrity founder, defendant Tim Ballard, to live the lavish lifestyle of a wealthy sex tourist and sexually manipulate and abuse employees, contractors, and volunteers under the guise of saving children. This is what from the lawsuit. The filing also claims that OUR showed little consideration for the safety of its staff and volunteers, focused instead on crafting a marketable public image. Now, Sound of Freedom, by the way, would be the ultimate result of those branding efforts, that movie that was released. Now, in a statement shared with Rolling Stone, an OUR spokesperson attempted to downplay Ballard's role before his departure. He said, while Tim Ballard was the public face of the organization during his tenure as CEO, he directly participated in less than 1% of OUR's operations between January 2020 and his departure in June of 2023. The organization said that in a statement, adding that the allegation that OUR is the alter ego of Tim Ballard is false. Yeah, it's not just civil suits dogging Ballard at this point. The Salt Lake Tribune reported last week that a criminal investigation had been opened after Celeste Boris, a former assistant of Ballard's and one of the women suing him for sexual and emotional abuse, made an official police report earlier this month in Linden, Utah. Now, this too prompted a statement from the Spear Fund, which sought to cast doubt on the verified criminal complaint against Ballard. The story, Spear President Ken Krogh alleged, he said, is designed to stir up a media frenzy to harm the reputation of Mr. Ballard and to impede his and others' efforts to fight the sex trafficking industry. Fuck off. Now, if Ballard is arrested in connection with Boris' sexual assault complaint, it would nearly conclude his swift and stunning fall from national acclaim in the span of just 6 months. But even without charges filed in this case, it seems unlikely that he's ever going to recover the kind of reputation that he once saw, that once saw appointed to a White House anti-trafficking advisory panel by then President Trump, which right away should tell you there's something fucking sketchy going on. Yeah, anyway, as Boris put it in a statement to the media on Thursday, and I quote, the very organization that claims to fight traffickers turned me over to a trafficker.
What? Oh, he's so gross.
It's awful. He's not on Epstein level, but he's definitely part of this, like not part of the Epstein thing, but he's right in that ilk. They're cut from the same cloth. What a piece of shit.
Yeah, and her statement, the organization that claims to fight traffickers turned me over to a trap. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it doesn't sound like he's going to be having a very good time over the next couple years, and well-deserved. All right, we have to take a quick break, but I'll be back with Mario Nicholas. He is the lawyer, the counsel for plaintiffs in the Colorado lawsuit, now going to the Supreme Court of Colorado for an appeal. So everybody stick around. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. I promised you an update from counsel for the plaintiffs who have filed that suit in Colorado to keep Donald Trump off the ballot pursuant to Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. And now the application for appeal went into the Supreme Court along with the appeal itself. And here to discuss it is counsel Mario Nicholas. How are you today?
I'm well, Allison. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you. First of all, congratulations, counselor. Your application to the Supreme Court for appeal was accepted.
Yep, we are on the way in the Colorado Supreme Court. So we have filed our one issue with the Colorado Supreme Court that we had with the lower court ruling.
Couple of questions, because I know that the Trump side of this case filed in their application and they asked for a few things. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. They also filed an appeal on the same day. And they asked for the...
Because they won so hard, right?
Yeah.
They won. He's fully exonerated, perfect. And that's why they're appealing.
Yeah. And not just on one issue or two issues or 3 or 5 or 6 or 8, but in fact on 11 different issues.
11 issues.
Not enough fingers to count it on 2 hands, unless you're a 6-fingered man. I mean, I guess Princess Bride and all that.
Count Rogan could do it, yeah.
Right. So outside of that, they have 11 issues that they've asked the Colorado Supreme Court to review, and they asked. So Colorado Supreme Court has a word limit. They're only so long. They don't want War and Peace written to them. 9,500 words, a lot of words in a brief. Trump asked for 19,000. The court has come back since then and said, no, we're going to stick to the 9,500. So he'll have to find some way to not only answer the brief that we submitted. So we actually submitted a brief when we submitted our application. Trump did not. He not only has to answer that, but he has to bring up his 11 issues in that 9,500 words. Lawyers are long-winded, and I think that there's likely to be a trimming down of the issues for them. Either that, or it will be very, very difficult to get in that time. The other thing that I think is important is the Colorado Supreme Court understands that this needs to happen very, very quickly. We have a January 5th certification deadline in Colorado. And if this is going to be heard by the Colorado Supreme Court and then potentially by the U.S. Supreme Court, they know they have to move expeditiously. And what they have done is they have required Trump to file a briefing on Monday. So his answer to our brief, plus his entire brief on his side, we'll have 4 days to answer that. So by the next Friday, he'll have 3 days after that to answer and do a reply on the following Monday. That Wednesday, so 2 weeks from yesterday, will be oral argument for the Colorado Supreme Court, and I'm sure that they will issue a decision very soon thereafter. So I think we could be looking at, a very, I'm hoping sometime before mid-December we get a decision.
That would be outstanding, especially if it goes in your favor. You only have the one issue. He's got 11, and he got his 19,000 word count leave of court motion denied, and he has to file by Monday. I don't know who said it, but it rings in my ears right now. If I had more time, I'd have written a shorter brief.
Winston Churchill.
Thank you.
Churchill.
I think that's going to be exceedingly difficult for Trump's attorneys to do over the weekend. Although I think I heard somewhere he hired these 3 attorneys just to deal with this specific case, but I may also be confusing that with the gag order appeal in D.C. I mean, there's only 800 things that he has going on in court right now.
Right.
But it's going to be interesting to see if he can fit his reply and his appeal into 9,500 words, especially after he asked for more than double that. But yours came in along with the application. You filed it at the same time, 9,500 words, and it is pretty direct, right to the point. I've gone over it bit by bit and my favorite parts. But what are your favorite parts of this particular brief?
Yeah, I think that it was brilliantly written. I want to let you know, Jason Murray from our team is the one who took the lead on writing that. We take a team approach and work together and share the burden, but he was kind of the lead from the Olson Grimsley Murray law firm. And my favorite part, and it was one of the things that I had brought up, and then I think that he worked in, was that Alexander Hamilton in Federalist 69 writes about the presidency. And so Jason worked in there that talking about the original Constitution and whether they thought officer was included, where Alexander Hamilton says the president will be an elected officer of the people. So he wrote in there, nor does the court need to determine whether Alexander Hamilton somehow misunderstood the usage of the term officer in the 1780s. I thought that was, when I read that line, I actually guffawed. I thought that was pretty funny, particularly because this judge based a lot of her decision on the actual Constitution and saying, well, other parts of the Constitution don't use it in this way, and so it kind of tends to make me think they didn't mean to include it. So tough to argue with Alexander Hamilton. But I think the more pressing issues are what the 14th Amendment drafters thought about it in the 1860s. And we have included ad nauseum a long list of reasons why it is very clear they thought that the presidency was an office under the United States and that the president was an officer of the United States.
Yeah, and the two parts that stood out to me are, first of all, the common sense paragraph. Like, this just to say that an insurrectionist president can't run for Senate, any other office, but the highest office in the land, it doesn't stand up to scrutiny, common sense scrutiny. But I also like the part where you said, listen, if this is the case, all kinds of crazy things can happen.
Sure.
And some of those examples were great. Can you share some of those examples? Like if we say that that the president is an officer of the United States, here's some nutty stuff that could go down.
Right. I mean, so you're talking about things where we don't require officers of the United States to answer to a religious, they have someone could make a religious qualification, and you have to make a religious fealty. That doesn't apply to officers of the United States, but if the president isn't an officer, then it wouldn't apply to him. It's things like that are out there. Furthermore, one of the issues was regarding the oath that he takes, and the oath. The only oath that's prescribed by the Constitution is for the president, and the president is required to preserve, protect, and defend the United States. Versus in Article 6, it says, all officers will take an oath to support the United States. By the logic that the judge had put together, that would mean the vice president probably wouldn't need to swear any oath whatsoever to the United States, and would somehow negate the president actually swearing an oath to support, even though, as we wrote, when you look up the definitions from dictionaries of that era, to support, protect, or defend, or to preserve, protect, and defend also means to support. Defend means to support. So we thought it was just some of the juxtapositions. We just said, look,
And there was a judge, right, in the 1860s, I think you put this in your brief, or a way long time ago, under Section 3, saying it doesn't have to be exact, the words here. It just has to convey the meaning generally.
Yeah, that's right. One of the judges. So remember, this was used most right after the Civil War, and one of the judges went through and discussed it and gave a jury charge, and said to the jury, look, it doesn't have to be precisely the same oath. It's just that they took an oath, and the oath is effectively the same thing. And so I think that should be pretty persuasive. I think there are debates that we pulled newspapers from back then. There are debates between members of Congress where they talk about it and they say, oh, well, of course it includes the presidency.
Jefferson Davis.
Yeah, a lot of debate about Jefferson Davis and whether he would be eligible for the presidency, because under this ruling, Jefferson Davis couldn't run to be a congressman, couldn't run to be a senator, but could have run to be the president. He couldn't be an elector to the presidency, but he could actually be the president. So I think that's one of the things that we put a lot into this. And I want to be clear. As we talk about this, it sounds a little silly, and the other side's going to have their say, and they're going to try to push their position. And as far as this judge goes, we still think the judge did incredible work. So much information over such a little period of time with such a little help, maybe a couple clerks. And she did say that this one seemed to be a tie. It's just the tie goes to the runner, and that the last footnote in her decision effectively says, hey, look, when you've got a tie, you should side with the norms, democratic norms. In this case, that means allowing him onto the ballot. Now, we don't think it's going to end in a tie. We think our case is much stronger, and arguing it before the Colorado Supreme Court, we think that we have a very good argument for them to overturn that.
And you and I talked a little bit offline about actually how her decision, where she ruled in your favor on everything up until that very last cherry on top of the sundae, actually works in your favor because it might not have been appealed by the other side. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, since we were ruled against, we had the power to go ahead and directly appeal and make an appeal. I don't want to read Donald Trump's mind. I don't think that many people want to try that anyway. But whether it's him or his counsel, there was always the chance that if we won outright, they might have chosen not to appeal, and they might have just kind of written off Colorado and not appealed, and so not had a more important ruling overall. But going up to Colorado Supreme Court, it looks like we're kind of going all that way anyway. And I don't know, again, maybe Trump just couldn't take a loss anyway. And if he had the loss, he would have had to try to appeal that. I mean, they're obviously appealing. There's 11 issues. So
no, he totally won. I'm sorry. He totally won everything.
Right. Yeah. Well,
hence the 11 issue appeal that he's going to have to scrunch down into 9,500 words. That alone, I'm very interested to see how his attorneys can pull that off.
Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't allow for thorough discussion, I think. And when you have these appeals, typically there are a lot of things that you think that you can appeal, but good attorneys whittle it down, and they whittle it down and narrow and focus a court on this, particularly when, it's not, you've already won a case. You say, hey, look, we need to really defend this area. And then maybe we raise a couple more. And I mean, it makes sense for them because, hey, if they lose on the officer thing, they want to have at least some chance to win the other ones. But I don't, a lot of the other issues they're going to try to appeal, the court does no deference. Or it owes a lot. Actually, the court does owe a lot of deference to the lower court. Any factual findings require that the appellate court give deference to the findings of the finder of fact, in this case, the judge, and that they will only overturn on clear error, versus a matter of law, like whether the presidency is an office of the United States. That's a matter of pure law. It's reviewed de novo. The appellate court might take a look at it, the opinion, and they'll understand the opinion and the district court took, but they make up their mind completely independent of that. And they get to review the briefings we provide and say, okay, this is what's convincing, this is what is not.
Yeah, and it's that factual finding that I think is what's going to make it really difficult for somebody like Trump or Trump's lawyers, who Trump is going to be saying what he wants to have in this filing. It's going to make it very difficult for them, because they're going to now have to spend a bunch of time arguing things that are more political than they are pure error on the part of the factual findings. And it's going to upset Trump, because he's not going to be able to do his long-winded political stuff that has no purpose and is just incendiary. And so when they should be spending time finding what their idea of an actual error is in the factual finding and arguing that point, it's just not going to be that sexy to Donald Trump. He's not going to want to hear it. Not that I could think of an error that they might come at you with. But meanwhile, you have gotten to write 9,500 words on your one issue. And so I think it's it's an incredible brief. It's well written. It's succinct. It makes sense. Everybody that I've shared it with is like, oh, here's a legal briefing that I can understand. This makes total sense to me. So we'll keep an eye on this, of course. And I appreciate you keeping in touch with me about it. Is there anything else you want to say about this appeal before we get out of here for Thanksgiving?
No, I think the next couple of weeks will be interesting and fun, and we will see where it goes from there. But keep an eye on Colorado.
Absolutely. I'll help everybody do that. So I appreciate you keeping me in the loop, my friend. Everybody, counsel for the plaintiffs in the Colorado suit to keep Trump off the ballot pursuant to Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, Mario Nicholas. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Allison. Goodbye.
Everybody stick around. We'll be right back with the good news. Everybody, welcome back. It's time for the good news.
Who likes good news? Everyone? Then good news, everyone!
Good news, good news. And if you have any good news, confessions, corrections, if you want to play What the Mutt, What the Heck Wine, Opine on the Bovine, What the Hell's in That Shell, Cat Me If You Can, I mean, anything you want to send to us about animals, we'll try to guess. Your pod pet photos also, we love to see your pets. Holiday pictures, what you're doing this year for the holidays, a happy place, a shout out to a loved one, a small business in your area, or your small business. You want to send us Whoopie stories, Blanky stories, stuffed animal stories, or if you have a misheard song lyric, we haven't heard one of those in a while, we'd love to hear about it. Or just an aha moment, or shit kids say, or shit you say, baby pictures, frog orgies, whatever you want to send us. Send it to us at dailybeanspod.com.
Send in shit Allison or Dana says.
Yeah. Hey, there's a good one. Shit AG and DG say. Send it to us at dailybeanspod.com. Click on contact. Oh, man. Oh.
Yeah, no, you're okay.
Whew. We have a note from the producer. There are no Sholo eats Quintly in this segment. Thank you for making me say it again, producer. I appreciate you.
He loves you.
First up from Sue, no pronouns. Hi, you beautiful beans queens. A very small pronunciation correction. Volodymyr Zelensky would no doubt prefer if you did not pronounce his name in its Russian version, Vladimir, but the Ukrainian version, Volodymyr, as the long O's, like both, Volodymyr Zelensky. That's it. No big whoop. Thanks for your tireless feeding and watering of the bean patch. Love that.
Oh my God, I love that. All right, this one's from the anonymous HRC veteran. Hello, Beans Queens. I'm finally caught up after being out at sea. I'm currently serving on a warship near the Seattle area. A coworker who is trans has educated me over the last 2 years on what it means to her to have me as an ally. Now, I was so inspired hearing AG's support of Dana's work that I signed up to volunteer at Seattle's HRC dinner. To my delight, I got to meet some amazing souls and gained more insight on what HRC does. I was able to witness a community of people whose way of life and well-being are under attack through poor legislation or lack of acceptance. Spread love and joy, and it was just beautiful. Thank you to the moon and back for sharing a moment with me and taking a selfie, Dana. Your comedic relief in a world filled with injustice is much needed. AG, thank you for your service, shipmate. I appreciate what you've done for those of us who wouldn't have been hard-pressed to find abortion services in states where we may not have had the choice of being stationed. You're a lighthouse as I navigate what seems to me, to be unforgiving times. Happy holidays from my pet family, Cleopatra and Sasha Fierce. And Anonymous, I don't know if you heard the episode right after the gala, but I gave out props to you. It was such a joy to meet you and your beautiful smiling face. Thank you for your service to the country and for volunteering for the gala in Seattle. It was a joy to meet you.
And look at the kitties. One has a beautiful shell necklace. Look at that. And then the other is laying in a bed of poinsettias. Absolutely
so beautiful.
Thank you for that. And thanks for your service too. Seattle. Bremerton? Interesting. I've had a ton of friends who were stationed on ships up in the Washington area. So anyway, again, thanks for your service and thanks for the kitty pictures. Very beautiful. Next up, major headache. No pronouns. Thank you for giving me and all your listeners the news we need every day. I rely on you and Dana for the sliver of sanity in these crazy times. I'd like to offer a correction to an expression that you and plenty of other podcasters have been misquoting as long as I've been listening. The correct saying goes, as she is wont to do. That's wont, without an apostrophe, which means one's customary behavior. I keep hearing people say, as she is wont to do. Well, I pronounce W-O-N-T, want. Sorry about that.
I have never used that sentence in my life.
I am wont to do. I pronounce it want. I pronounce W-O-N-T, want, instead of won't. I am wont to do. I pronounce it want, which really doesn't make sense grammatically. Let's bring back won't, I guess, is I think what Major Headache is saying, that they prefer it be pronounced won't. Alternatively, if you want to avoid using the word won't, substitute tendency or habit, which would have the same meaning. Again, love the beans and all your shows and listen to them all faithfully. And I totally related to AG's comment about becoming fascinated with birds as we get older. As an example, here's a picture I took yesterday that includes both a blue heron and an egret. So thank you for that, Major Headache, but I'm going to keep pronouncing it as I am wont to do. I'm going to keep pronouncing it want, as I am wont to do. That's how I've always heard it. And maybe, I don't know, I'll look it up, but I spell it WONT when I write it, if that helps.
I wish I could back you up on this. I have never heard that sentence before this submission.
Oh,
ever.
Really?
Yeah.
As I am wont to do.
Hopefully I'm not the only person. It sounds very Shakespearean.
Perhaps.
Perhaps.
Look at the blue heron and the egret. Beautiful photo. Where is that?
Yeah.
I want to go. I want to go to there.
It does look quite beautiful.
As Liz Lemon would say. Okay, this next one is amazing.
I know. This is from Amy, pronouns she and her. Good day, my lovely beans queens. I love you so much. All I really needed to say is that you really don't want me to take my whole family with me to vote. They are all Republicans, although thankfully not full-on Trumpers. I'm a lonely little blueberry in my own home. I'm going to try to persuade them not to vote or to vote third party. Wish me luck. For pet tax, here's Max and my Republican dad. Max weighs 165 pounds and loves to have dad hold him up. Max is huge.
Is this like a golden retriever Pyrenees mix?
It looks like it. Maybe even some St. Bernard in there. I have no idea.
It's a big ass dog. It looks like just a giant golden retriever is what it looks like.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Maybe some
beautiful.
Mastiff.
Yeah,
Who
try to
knows?
persuade them not to vote third party, not to vote Republican, or just not to vote. Just stay home. If they're gonna vote red or third party, just stay home. But you know, a lot of times, a lot of folks have been able to say, "Hey, for me, for my rights, for women's rights, could you just please this one time? It would mean a lot to me." And see what they say.
Yeah.
Next up from Felicity, pronouns she and her. Hi, AG and DG. Congratulations, Allison, for approaching the over 50 bird lady stage. I've written in before about my front yard bird feeder and shared photos of my favorite visitors. This time, I'm bringing you birds of a different color in response to your call for booby pictures. 10 years ago, my husband and I were lucky enough to go to the Galapagos, so we're going to see some blue-footed boobies, I bet.
Yep.
Alas, we weren't there during the season when the boobies were everywhere, but I did find a nice pair to share with you. I'm wishing the whole Beans crew a happy Thanksgiving. There they are, blue-footed boobies.
It's a lovely pair of boobies. Thank you so much, Felicity.
Yes, a pair of boobies on the rocks.
I mean, they're just so cool.
They
I actually
are.
just got a couple hats from a friend of mine's business. Hey, maybe, am I allowed to shout out a small business on here?
Sure.
All right, just because it's blue-footed boobies. So one of my very dear friends in the world has a business called Be Mo Kind, BEMOKIND, and she sells T-shirts and hats. And like, I have this hat that I wear all the time called Kindness Revolution, and love is upside down, and you can see it. But she's got blue-footed booby hats that she sells, and she's got shirts and beanies, and it's just Be More Kind, and it's a great message. So listen, if you want to support a small business, I don't know if there's a note because she has no idea I'm doing this. So I don't know, maybe you guys will crash the system, but it's Be Mo Kind, BeMoKind.com. And so go support her. I've known her since we were 18 years old, and I'm so proud of her for spreading joy in this world. And the swag's awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Blue-footed booby hats? That's incredible.
Yeah.
And Be Mo Kind? Heck yeah. You know, I mean, what have I always said? In a world of performative cruelty, kindness is punk as fuck. Be punk as fuck.
Holidays are coming. Do it.
Dude, blue-footed booby hats for Christmas for everybody. Fuck yeah.
So good.
You know what? I don't see a lot of red-footed boobies. I feel like we need more red-footed boobies in the world.
Those are the Republican boobies. We don't want to be anywhere near them.
Oh, you're right. You're right. MAGA boobies. Nobody likes those.
Yeah.
Next up from Patty, pronouns she and her. Hello, Beans Queens. Finally, my day has come. I'm sitting here listening to the episode of The Need for Speed when you started talking about how, at a certain age, you begin identifying birds and suddenly own binoculars. This is 100% accurate. I now feed the wildlife so that I can watch them eat, which is a bizarre thing to say out loud, and yet here we are. When Dana asked if a group of tits was called titties, I snort laughed along with you. I have the same schoolyard humor, and I'm here to validate that claim.
Thank you.
Years ago, there was a newspaper article about the challenges of global warming, forcing birds to migrate at different times into different zones. So this caused stress and conflict that resulted in the adorable little songbirds going on a voracious rampage. So the title of the article was along the lines of Murder Tits or Voraciously Violent Tits. Did I feel bad for nature's struggle? Yes. Did I snort laugh at the titles? Yes. Did I giggle like a schoolgirl when I acquired my new email address? Fuck yes. Murder tits. My friends and I are now proud owners of a few bird-themed email addresses, which definitely include the phrase great tits, murdering tits, tits on a rampage, etc. So thank you for the laughs. Thank you for keeping me sane during the past 40 years. Or does it just feel like 40 years? Greater tits unite. And here's a tit. And is that a tit mouse? With a tit?
Yeah, that is just a mouse. It looks like he's killed it, but also looks like a trophy, or the mouse is just playing dead in the snow. But either way, that face of that little yellow tit is like, don't fuck with me.
And I'm wondering if that's a tit mouse. So
might be.
We have a pair of titties in that place.
There you go.
In that case. All right. Thank you all so much. I hope you are having a wonderful holiday. Don't forget to pick up those MAGA phones and subscribe to the Beans for them. And put the child lock on Fox News app.
Yes.
Yeah, have fun. I hope the discussions go okay. I by the way, did you see the Les Dog, Leslie Jones, her SNL skit where they're like, for $29.99, you can have Leslie Jones come to your house and interject when people start talking about bullshit.
I didn't see it.
It's so good. If you have a chance to look up the Saturday Night Live, look up SNL, Leslie Jones, Thanksgiving, because she, at first she just interjects and says, you really gonna bring that up today? That's what you want to talk about when everybody's happy eating food? But then later on, they're like, and, if she can sometimes just go back to basics, and somebody will, some older woman is like, let me tell you what I think about the transgenders. And she does air quotes, and Leslie just goes, like just starts yelling right in her face.
I love that.
And then she sneaks up behind this like a teenage kid. She's like, don't you talk about that MAGA shit, or I'll tell everybody you use Nana's Wi-Fi to jerk off.
I love Leslie.
She's so funny. I used to do shows with her up in Hollywood, and she's just a brilliant stand-up and a wonderful human being. So give that a watch.
Do you know she got cast on SNL when she was 47? So if any of you are like, hey, it's way past my prime, can't do this, can't do that. She was one of the oldest cast members on Saturday Night Live, and she kicked ass.
Yeah, 100%. I was 44 when I started the Miller She Wrote podcast.
There you go.
So, and if you're thinking about being a comedian, you usually got to be a comedian for about 10 years before big stuff starts happening. Just throwing that out there. So
that's true.
10-year rule, right, for comedians?
Yep.
I started.
Some people get lucky, but not often.
Yeah, I started in 2008, and it was 2018 when the podcast started. So 10 years.
There you go.
Or 10,000 hours, which is hard for a comedian because we work in 5 and 10 minute sets. Anyway, everybody, I hope you had a wonderful holiday and continue to have a wonderful holiday weekend. We'll be back in your ears tomorrow. We aren't going anywhere. We got shit to do. We're working. We're doing it. So I look forward to that. John Fugelsang will be here tomorrow. Do you have any final thoughts before we get out of here today, my friend?
Just what you would probably think is wishing everyone a very happy holiday. Love those around you. Hug those around you. Unless you don't know them, then don't touch them unless you're vaccinated. And just try and find something to be grateful for. There is something every one of us can be grateful for.
That reminds me of do you ever see Cartoon Planet with Space Ghost and Brack and Zorak?
I don't think so.
Oh, I love that song. Brack was my favorite. Hey, everybody, I'm Brack. And he had this song called Don't Touch Me. And it was just, da, 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 don't touch me. And he would just walk around and say that. It's amazing. So now you have two things you can look up. Leslie.
Yes.
Saturday Night Live, Thanksgiving, and Brack on Cartoon Planet. Don't Touch Me. It's an excellent music video. I know you'll enjoy it. All right, everybody. That is our show. We'll be back in your ears tomorrow. Until then, please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, take care of the planet, take care of your mental health. Vote blue over Q.
And take everyone except your Republican family with you, but also do and make them vote for someone that's not Trump.
And take care of your family. I think I left that out. I've been AG.
Yeah. And I've been DG.
And them's the beans.
The Daily Beans is written and executive produced by Allison Gill, with additional research and reporting by Dana Goldberg. Sound design and editing is by Desiree McFarlane, with art and web design by Joelle Reeder with Moxie Design Studios. Music for The Daily Beans is written and performed by They Might Be Giants, and the show is a proud member of the MSW Media Network, a collection of creator-owned podcasts dedicated to news, politics, and justice. For more information, please visit mswmedia.com.
MSW Media.